Hey, Tom, Australian businesses are under increasing pressure to meet higher standards of cybersecurity, like level three of Essential 8. But from your perspective, what does it actually take for MSPs to get their clients to that level of security?
I think there's two things, Jeremy. The big one is an understanding that getting to maturity, any level of maturity, probably barring one, but particularly two and three, is quite the process and quite the cost. So I think the conversation with our clients in particular, particularly when it's driven from supplier or industry need that they have a requirement to get to two to three, because let's be honest, a lot of businesses there's not a lot of businesses out there that have a desire just to, they want to increase their security, but generally it's pushed upon them or thrust upon them from industry or standards.
Yep.
And I think the conversation needs to be had by MSPs and their trusted advisor that this is a journey. It doesn't happen straight away. I think there's some misconceptions from a client level that this takes a long period of time to do. Generally, on average for us, the general process for a level two maturity and three is even longer, but is a minimum, depending on size of organisation, of course, but we're dealing with medium to larger organisations, is a 6 to 12 month process. And of course, with that becomes, a lot of labour cost in terms of project engineering, consulting, and of course, platform cost. So no matter which way you cut it, the platform cost is significant. So it's quite an impediment. So we do a lot of discovery with the client to ensure that, we go through the Essential 8 in a step-by-step process before even putting costs in front of them so that they're fully aware of not only the cost and the time impact, but also the organisational impact, because it is significant on their users. What they can do today, they can't do tomorrow in the same way, or they can't do it all. And that is often, apart from the cost and process and time, I would suggest that that's probably the biggest issue that we're seeing with organisations in the implementation of Essential 8 in the higher maturity models.
Very insightful. So there's a lot of hype right now around AI in the MSP space. And you've previously said in the past that MSPs shouldn't rush into AI services until their clients have a real strong process automation foundation in place. But really keen to hear, why is that such a critical first step in your view?
Well, I'll split it out, Jeremy. When I say don't rush into it, we're all for utilising AI, Copilot, ChatGPT in a secure way for basic things. I mean, most people, most industry is using it for proposals and drafting, all that sort of thing. I'm talking about an evolution beyond that. So really transformational usage of AI. And so what we do is, again, we do a lot of consulting with an organisation and say, let's actually get your process automation component of your business, because most businesses, particularly the ones that we're dealing with, 50 and 100 end users and above, they scaled their business and they have a lot of process in their organisation. And with that becomes a lot of people power, and they have a lot of people doing a lot of process. And before you even talk about AI, we're finding huge benefits in businesses going down the process automation path. They can strip out a lot of error. They can speed up their process, and we can talk about examples of this, but that's making a huge impact on businesses that can augment their labour force, not necessarily get rid of their labour force, but augment their labour force to become a lot more effective on the right things. Then when we talk about AI, it's starting to utilise AI for a number of areas. Then augmenting, to use that term again, that process automation to start making better decisions on, error handling and needing to make a decision based on past data. Because if you've got the process automation component right, you've sped the process up, you can then overlay that with AI to make better decisions. The second component is reporting. Reporting is a big one for most management and C-suite teams. They're getting so much information to them, and they're utilising AI, as I mentioned, on the basic components, but then really utilising AI on the great process automation to be able to make better decisions, forecast it out. So we're looking at what has occurred with data and when, at what times of the year, really getting into the detail, and we can go through examples, but that's where we're seeing the power. And then obviously over all of that is the security component. So we're utilising all those, the process automation overlaid by the AI in terms of agents, and obviously looking at it from a very heavy perspective, from a governance perspective, because that's a big one, and obviously just general security.
Yeah, awesome. I really like how you frame the foundation and the AI being an overlay. I think that's such an awesome image for non-technical leaders to understand what you're advising. For years now, businesses have been exploding in the amount of data that they're generating, and it's more than any human or team of humans could possibly handle. In what ways do you see analytical AI stepping in to help leaders uncover trends and gaps and opportunities they might otherwise miss?
For sure, Jeremy. I think there's a lot of AI that you can just overlay and start to ingest data and get good data out. The biggest thing that we're seeing is bad data in, bad data out. So just stepping back away and going through that very good process of saying, okay, and this can look different for many organisations. For a smaller organisation, often they've been, could be around for 10 or 15 years, even smaller periods of time, and they've got a lot of data, but it's either redundant or it's no longer useful. So they're putting AI into their businesses and they're starting to get some pretty average responses because it's not relevant. So we go through an AI readiness assessment to say, okay, well, what data have you got? And it's getting back to the basics. And I think we all as an industry wanting to, shiny object syndrome, but you've got to get the basics right before any of this can be looked at. So there's that. And then we start to look at, okay, we've got the right data. Then start to look at analytics, and whether it's financial data or business decisions based off the right information inputted, is looking at trends. Most business owners we talk to, they want to speed up, make their business more efficient. The second component, then once they've got that right, is they want to make better decisions, forward looking. So that's looking at that data and saying, well, what information can we get? There's lots of examples, whether that be in the larger components of hospitality industry. We've got insurance industry. We've done a number of things where we're looking at the data for them and with partners and saying, what have we got and what are the inputs moving forward that could affect the historical data, and then they can start to make better decisions. And then utilising agents from a perspective that they can start to talk to the data themselves. Because we're not going to be in a position as an MSP to know how every single business owner is, where they're heading and how they're thinking and all that sort of stuff. So we've got to put them in the driver's seat. But as I said, getting that data accurate is absolutely critical, because whilst AI is very powerful from the public perspective, so when I say public, that is data out in the interwebs and interpreting that data and what have you, the real power of AI at a small, medium and large size business is their internal data. That's why we focus so much on getting the quality right before analysing.
Awesome. What's amazing to me is how All I.T has worked with companies to boost their productivity without adding headcount by first unlocking the process automation and layering AI over the top of that. Can you walk me through that journey in practical terms of how that plays out with your clients?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we noticed very quickly, Jeremy, that this is, if we don't head down deep into this path, we'll be left behind. And I think that the big thing is, we're still a traditional MSP. You still come to us to look at cybersecurity, getting, help for people, but we've got to become so much more, and we already are. So we've started to go as a strategic advisor and say, who are the partners that we can partner with on process automation, on AI, coupled with what we do internally to turbocharge and become a true strategic advisor. I think it's thrown around a lot in our industry, but in order to do that, you've got to show some practical results. So we've gone down that path with a number of organisations that have been open to it, and we continue to, and that's why we're growing so quickly, is getting into their business, knowing why they do processes, acknowledging where where a lot of time is being spent, and based off now our experience in other organisations are saying, hey, we've done X, Y, and Z for an organisation in terms of process improvement, automation, APIs. And a lot of these businesses, Jeremy, just don't know that that's available. They're looking at AI first. Now that comes, but it's secondary to getting their processes right. Now we're under no illusion that we know their businesses inside and back to front, but we can put them in either ourselves or our strategic advisors and partners to say, let's look at a process. You take, for example, a large insurance company that does claims, ingesting huge amounts of data on a daily basis, hundreds of claims. We went to them and said, you've got a huge number of people just doing process data entry. Now, one of the challenges we had was we went to one of our partners and they said, well, we can't do APIs to connect what was 5 systems to be able to do this. So what we did is we actually overlaid the UI and did process automation if it was a person, bringing down what was, for example, one claims process from 20 minutes down to 2 minutes, utilizing the existing people to do the exceptions, but then overlaid by AI in the months later to say, okay, well, these humans are looking at these exceptions, start to learn from that. And that's where the true power has come from. And that's changed that particular business. That's enabled them to go 5, 6x and not employ another person.
Wow. Incredible. Would be significantly shifting how that client views All I.T as its MSP, would it not?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we go from, being the people that have, do a bit of cybersecurity, and this is how, a lot of clients view MSPs. They look after our cybersecurity, we fix them when, computers are down or we need a new computer. We've got to move away. We will always provide those services. And for some clients, that's all they need. But for more and more and more, and this is this sort of technology and capability is coming down the scale, Jeremy. To give you an example, we had one human resources company that had, again, a number of processes that could be automated. They spent circa $40,000. Now, that's a lot of money, but that payback was well under 6 months. So it's an investment, but it's the payback on these projects are very, very quick. So we're seeing smaller businesses going, well, okay, well, I've got, a team of 3 people doing this data entry process. I can automate the process, utilize them on far greater customer-facing processes, and we're ahead. We don't have to continue to employ people to do this. And it's the absolute most important component to being able to get a business to scale. If we look at all of our clients over the years that have scaled, us included, the biggest impediment to that is just getting people to do the core functions of the things that you're doing. And if you can overcome that, the world's your oyster.
Yeah, 100%. You and your team are often walking into businesses of varying complexities, and one of your clients, even, you walked in and you found out that there was 141 SaaS applications in their stack, which sounds overwhelming when we're thinking about security and data protection and maintaining visibility and control. How do you approach helping a business like that?
Look, it's out of control, really. I mean, we've fallen victim to it as well. Every business does. There's an app for that. There's an app for that. It's just out of control. There's a few things that I think that the reason why that happens is because we're trying to infill all the processes. We're trying to do a little bit of process automation, right? And try and get an app to fill in that, and that's going to make that quicker. And nothing's talking to each other. The first port of call is we need to look at is the governance process. And that's different for all organizations, but it's becoming more and more important as smaller businesses start to deal with more bigger businesses because of specialization, which is great. But those bigger organizations are saying, okay, well, where's all my data sitting and the governance around that? So we go through a large governance piece with our organizations and saying, okay, well, what platforms are you using and where are you putting your information, your customers' information? And do you know where it's sitting and how it's being secured? So that's the first port of call. Otherwise, you could have your business at risk. So going back to the basics there. And then we look at going through with organizations and saying, well, what systems can we actually plug together to make it all better? And often what we find is that there's been, SaaS creep, and they've got this. And also the large organizations can do more and they didn't realize it. Take, for example, Microsoft and Power Automate. You know, a lot of people just don't know the capabilities of these products. So they go out and get a third-party product. Not only is it a cost thing, but these people can't keep up. As I mentioned, that client had over 140, 141 SaaS applications. Now, you just couldn't imagine that could be the case, but that was it. And decent sized organisation, but nonetheless, that would come at a large cost, and security overlaid by a number of things. So we take them through that and just seeing what's possible, and then going through that process as an organisation with them and saying, well, these products that you've got can do these, eliminate those, and then start to join the dots of these systems to make them far more effective.
Awesome.